What's up, everybody? We're going to take a look at some questions that everybody's been asking recently. I just went back through YouTube, Instagram, and grabbed some questions that people were throwing out there. We're going to take a couple minutes to answer them here, covering topics of mostly strength and conditioning, a little bit of me competing, and kind of how I'm training for the next competition, which is probably at this point going to be the Masters Division CrossFit Games. So let's get started. Question number one. I'm curious, do you still add dynamic effort components into your strength work? And if so, do you use accommodating resistance? Dynamic efforts are going to be the speed squats, banded squats, squats with chains, deadlifts with chains, bench with chains, more of the Westside barbell method, things that Westside made really, really popular. And in terms of accommodating resistance, you're looking at adding a special type of resistance over the full range of the movement. So if we take that back squat, for example, squatting with bands, you're going to squat at 50% of your 1 rep max, 45 to 50% of your 1 rep max, and add bands on. So when you stand, the resistance becomes greater and you're working through a different kind of resistance when you squat, right? You're just building a different type of skill set for the squat. Answer to your question is I haven't been doing as much of it right now. I was focusing more on CrossFit training. So as competitions get closer, when I'm only 8 to 10 weeks out from a competition, some of those more special strength exercises, I'm going to start to cut out and get way more specialized into the things that I know that I need to do for a competition. So when it comes to an online qualifier, you know that your arena is fairly set in terms of probably going to use a box, you're going to use a barbell, you're going to use rings. There's probably some things that you know you're not going to have to worry about as well. Outside running, those kind of things, they don't work with a lot of video workouts. So those are the things that I've steered more towards in terms of my training leading up to competitions, right? And so some of the dynamic effort days and more specialty exercises have to go. But I'm definitely picking back up on those right now as I'm heading towards the end of July, towards the games. I want to throw some more of that in there and get every inch of extra strength and capability in both the Olympic lifts and the 3 big lifts, deadlift, squat, and press that I can. So to answer your question, leading up to the competition, 8 to 10 weeks out, probably not so much. And any time outside of that I have time, or I can put more focus on those special exercises, that's when I'm going to do them. Thank you for the video. I have issues with both movements, as in the Olympic lifts, squat clean and snatch. Do you have any tips for increasing flexibility to be able to get into the front rack position? I am unable to rest the bar on my chest or shoulders. I have tried a few movements, but nothing has seemed to help. Absolutely. Now, the first thing that we need to go over in terms of fixing that is realize it's probably going to take you 4 to 6 weeks to really see some good results. 4 to 6 weeks of consistent work in terms of improving your flexibility and improving your mobility. So the 2 exercises or 3 exercises that I like the most for improving the front rack are going to be wrist stretch in both directions, because that's going to really loosen up the ability for your wrist to bend back and give you that flexibility so that the bar can sit on your chest. The other one is going to be the banded front rack stretch or a box front rack stretch. Both of those things to help stretch more or less your lat and your rear delt and some of the areas that don't allow you to actually lift your elbow, as well as your tricep. So lat, rear delt, tricep. If those areas are stiff and you're not stretching those areas, it's going to impede the ability for you to lift your elbows. So we want to make sure that those joints around the shoulder and those muscles around the shoulder joint are loosened up so that you can get your elbows as high as possible to receive that bar in the front rack position. The other thing that we really want to do is focus on foam rolling in terms of mobility. We're going to foam roll our upper back, our lats, our delts, all those areas that are inhibiting that movement, right? When you do these stretches, I recommend you hold them for at least 2 minutes minimum to get the maximal amount of range of motion change. If you have more time, look to extend as you work through that 4 to 6 weeks of dedicated stretch work in terms of going from 2 minutes up to 3 minutes for each stretch, up to maybe 4 minutes for each stretch, right? All of this is, again, going to help you increase the range of motion around the joint, right? Now, how frequency in terms of how often we want to do it, I will be focusing on doing these stretches at least every other day. Pick 1 or 2 that you don't have to do all of them every day, but pick 1 or 2 that are going to increase or that are going to be made to stretch out the front rack position, and perform them at least every other day, every 48 hours for 2 minutes at a time. So wrist stretch, banded front rack stretch, or the box front rack stretch are going to be great ones that are going to help you improve that front rack position. The Rogue Donkey or just the Abram 2.0, he's asking about GHDs and using the proper piece of equipment to do GHDs. Rogue has a great setup of equipment in order to accomplish that. They have really a couple options for you. I definitely want to do the GHD, but do you think if it's one of those, if you're going to get all of this set up, he's referring to the Donkey because you can do both GHD sit-ups and reverse hypers. Would you want to get both for the entire setup? If you're looking to get both, probably the best way to do it is to do the Donkey. It's probably going to be the most space saving if you are looking at getting them in one package. If you want to get them separate in terms of the GHD, the new Westside Scout Reverse Hyper is going to be probably your best option. That thing folds up really tiny. It doesn't take up a bunch of space. It allows you to accomplish exactly what you need to do. You can move it around in your gym really easy. The regular Reverse Hyper is fantastic. The thing's bomb-proof. It's going to sit on your floor like a tank. It's going to be way more stable. That's the one that I have in here. I love it. If you have the space, use that. If you don't, I would definitely actually recommend getting the Scout Reverse Hyper, the new Westside one, and a regular GHD. I would probably actually buy them separate. That's probably going to get you the best bang for your buck in terms of being able to utilize both pieces of equipment and manage the space the best that you can. Next question, do you have the light speed wire or heavier one? This is in reference to a jump rope review that I did. I honestly typically lean towards using heavier wire. I just like the feedback that it gives me on the handles. Okay, so I don't have the super light wire. It's definitely something that I want to try, but I've typically used the heavier wire, and I'm probably going to reach out to, or I'll definitely reach out to RX Smart Gear about the lighter wire and trying to incorporate that into my double unders as well. All right, this one is about recovery. Gentleman who is currently recovering from their second quad tendon rupture, but I am using military PT in terms of recovery. I saw you doing step downs. How effective was that? What alternative can be used for the eccentric movement machine you used? Also, have you heard of restrictive blood flow for the quad? So a handful of questions in there. Let's try to tackle them one at a time. How effective were the step downs? Very effective. That's a great way to work the eccentric movement of the knee closing an angle, and you're performing that movement under load of your own body weight. That was super helpful, forcing my quad basically to activate and perform a movement that you have to perform in day-to-day activity. So that was probably the simplest one. One of the simplest moves or recovery moves that I did was that simple step down in order to gain some more function back in my quad and build the strength back up. Second question was, what alternative can be used for the eccentric movement machine you used? There's a couple simple band movements that you can do. If you loop a band around a rig upright or just any sturdy structure, put your leg through it, push back so your leg is extended, and then, or so you can create tension on that band, and then all you're gonna do is open and close the angle of your knee 30 to 50 times slowly against that band resistance. That's gonna give you a great option, again, to pump blood through your knee, to really work that muscle and focus on the quad, getting it to fire, again, because losing quad function is probably one of the biggest problems I had with the quad tendon repair. So that exercise helped me out a ton. Again, 3 sets, 30 to 50 reps. Last question, have I heard of blood flow restriction for help with the quad? I absolutely have, and I've absolutely had a chance to use it and utilize it in some of my recovery, and it was great. There were almost like instant results that I could feel in terms of my quad feeling more activated. I lost pain there when I was working with blood flow restriction, just because of, in my opinion, the flush of fluid, right? Pushing through the knee and pushing through the quad. Your joints aren't areas that get a whole lot of blood flow, so anything you can do to stimulate that process and utilize it is going to help speed recovery. And it's actually a very simple process. Now, you definitely want to look up what that process is and follow it to a T to get the results that you want, but it's not very difficult to do. There's a handful of companies out there. If you just Google blood flow restriction, you're going to be able to find somebody who does it and sells a kit for it. And I would highly, highly recommend that as well. Just a way to isolate the leg, isolate the quad, and utilize a different method that's going to help that thing recover faster. This next question is about the GoRuck shoe, the ballistic trainer that they have. I did a review on that not too long ago. Did you notice that the 8mm drop in the shoe, that's the drop from the heel to the toe, Having any effect on running, or is it only really noticeable with squats, pistols, and Ole lifts? So definitely noticeable with all those squats, anything in the gym. With the running, I don't notice it quite as much. I don't know if that's because of the thickness of the sole, and the shoe is a little bit heavier, so I don't know how that contributes to it, but I don't feel that extreme angle when I run. I definitely do feel it more than, let's say, in an Innovate shoe that has a 0 drop or only about a 4 millimeter drop. I can feel the difference there almost immediately when I try those shoes on, but in terms of the difference between this shoe and a running shoe, the running shoe, you definitely feel like your heel is pitched up and you're more forward on your toe. The ballistic trainer doesn't quite feel just like that, but it is noticeable when you run that does feel like my Achilles is a little bit more protected. All right, that's all the time we've got for questions today. If you guys have more questions for my next YouTube video or another YouTube video, throw them down in the comments. Ask anything that you like about anything that we do on here. The Always Train Faith sessions, Clang and Bang sessions, any of the CrossFit stuff. Go ahead and throw those questions down in the comments. Like, subscribe, and we will see you next time.